So now we're going to create our user model, and basically what a model is in main stack is how you want your data to be entered into your database. Okay, so you want to configure that on the back end so that you have exact specifications on how you want your users to register. Okay, so first, inside the main directory, we're going to create a folder called app, right? And I'm going to use the command prompt because it's just what I like to use to do these kinds of things. So in the main directory, if you want to follow me in the command prompt, just go ahead and type in mkdir and app, and then change directory into that folder, and then again mkdir models, and then cd into that folder, okay, and then touch user.js. Okay, now I'll show you what I just did. Basically what I did was I created a new folder, and then I created another folder, models, and then I created the file user.js, right? So you don't necessarily have to do it with the command prompt, just how I like to do it. Anyway, let's go right in. So if you go to the Mongoose schema website, they have lots of examples on how to create a user schema. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy one of their examples. Okay, let's see here. So I really don't like, let me go back to the top. There we go. Okay, so I'll just copy that. And for those that didn't see what I did, I just clicked schemas on the left side and then just copied that. So go ahead and paste it. Ignore this bottom part, we're not going to use that. So basically what this does is invokes Mongoose module and then uses the Mongoose method schema and saves it to the variable schema. Makes sense. And so the way you create a new schema is you create a variable and you name your schema. So let's say user schema, right? And then you type in new schema, just like that. Okay, and it's going to be an object. Okay, and that's what the brackets are for. And so first we're going to provide a username, and the username is going to be an object, right? And it's going to be type string. It's going to be lowercase, true, and required true. Okay, and so what we're doing is basically creating user validation in Mongoose. And if you go back to the website, they show you lots of ways to do this and different things you can do. See, like right here. But for right now, we're just going to do string, lowercase, and required. And also one other thing, unique, so that we can't have more than one username registered. So on the back end, you always want to create lots of validation, like, for example, the max length that you want usernames to be, stuff like that. That's not just something you want to do on the front end, because on the front end, it can be bypassed by a hacker. So you want it on the back end as well. But for right now, I'm not going to get into that because it's too time consuming. For right now, I'm just going to create a basic username. And then, of course, password, same thing, type string, required, true. And then that's all I'm going to do for that one. And then email, finally. Again, type string, required, true, and then lowercase, true, and then unique, true, because we don't want more than one username, right? So we can delete this bottom part. Okay. Next thing we want to do is we want to export this into the server file, right? And the way you do that is just type in module.exports, and then we type in mongoose model, okay? And so then you name your model, okay? We're going to call it user, and then call it by the variable name, which is user schema, okay? So go ahead and hit save, pull up your server, and make sure nothing broke. Okay, we're looking good. Alright, so now let's go back into our server file, right here, and pull in our user model. So user require, okay, and it's going to be app.models, the directory we created, right there, app models user, there. You don't have to provide .js in Node applications. It automatically assumes that it's .js, okay. So again, just pull up the server, make sure nothing broke. I like to do that every time I hit save on something. Okay, so now what we're going to do is create a route for users to register. Okay, so the way we do that, and we already created a few, is post. Okay, So remember, anytime you are creating something or entering data into the database, it's always going to be post, okay? And we can name this route whatever we want. It's going to be on the back end. Users will not be able to access it through this route, just us. Okay, so we're going to name it users, I guess, and then function request respond, okay, just like before. So first we're going to go ahead and test this route, okay? So let's just say testing users route. Okay. Now the way that we test routes other than going in the browser is we use an application called, well, there's a few of them out there. I like to use Arc. Now, depending on what browser you have, like I'm using Google Chrome, if you search Arc, A-R-C, or Advanced REST Client, you'll find that add-on and you can download it and open it up and it'll look just like this. Okay, there's a few of them out there. There's Postman. There's a few of them. Just search something Google like client to test endpoints, right? Or search Advanced REST Client, something like that. Okay, but if you want to use the exact one I'm using, I'll show you what it looks like. So this one right here, Advanced REST Client, okay, Arc, or Postman you can use as well. They do the same exact thing. Anyway, so we're going to take this route, okay, and so our route is going to look like this, right? It's going to be HTTP localhost, our port, which mine is 8000. Yours might be a little different. Just go ahead and check your configuration by going to the command line and seeing what server it's running on, or what port it's running on. Okay, it's going to be /users. So that's what it's going to look like. So you can go ahead and copy that. And then what you want to do is whatever client you ended up using, you want to go ahead and paste it here. Okay. So if you're using Arc and you're following along, you can go ahead and use it. So up here you'll see, and most of these are similar, you'll see 4 different types of requests: get, post, put, delete. So really quick, get is retrieve data from the database, post is enter data, put is update data, and delete is, of course, delete data from the database. Okay, so we're going to be entering. So right now we're just going to go ahead, hit post, make sure we got the right location. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and I'm just going to put this on the side really quick and then hit send. Okay, and you see right here, testing users route. Okay, that's what we specified to be sent back upon that request. Okay, so now that we tested it and we make sure it works, we can go ahead and delete this and go ahead and start creating our new user route. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and create a local variable, and we're going to call it user, and it's going to be new user, just like that. Now keep in mind this will not work if you have not called the model up here. Okay, so just like with anything, you want to go ahead and open up your command line, make sure nothing broke. Alright, so we know we have 3 things in our model, right? We have a username, we have a password, and we have an email. So we're going to be needing those 3 things. So since we're creating this new instance of a user in this variable user, what we want to do is go ahead and type in user dot before all of these, right? Because that's how we're going to be able to save it, okay? And so the next thing we want to do is say, take the request body username and save it into the user's username, right? So in other words, the request that's being sent, in this case through this client, but normally it's going to be through the browser with Angular or something like that. Take that request and save the username into this variable, right? So we do the same thing for all of those, right? Oops. And there. Oops. And I just made a little error right there. Let me go ahead and fix that. Okay. Now, if you hit save, you'll notice that your server should give you an error. We're probably gonna have to send a request in order for it to determine that we don't have the right module installed. But I'll show you in a second what I'm talking about. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, once we get all the username, the password, and the email through the request, we want to go ahead and save it, right? So simple user.save. Simple, right? And I'm getting this all from the Mongoose website, so if you want to verify or just kind of reference that, okay. And then, so let's go ahead and test this out and see what we got, okay. So let's go ahead and hit type in, let's say, a user. Okay, and so with this, if you see right here, content type is JSON, right? So we're going to be sending this in JSON, right? It's the easiest to work with. So what it does is it takes the request that the user enters, right, when the user fill out the form, and it parses it into JSON and then saves it to the database, okay, using the endpoint, the route, right? And okay, so let's go ahead and create this is how you create a JSON object. It's very easy, right? You're just going to have key value pairs, and this is what that looks like, right? You're going to have the brackets on the outside, and then this is going to be the key, and then this is going to be the value, right? So we have three keys. We have username, we have password, and then we have email, right? Those are our three keys. So we can assign any value that we want, okay? So we'll just go ahead and do that. So for username, let's go ahead and create Vegeta, right? And then password, we'll put Goku. And then for email, dbz@gmail.com, right? So this is our JSON object, okay? And this is the key and this is the value, right? So we're passing a username, a password, and an email. And if you go back here, that's exactly what it's expecting, right? These three, and then it's going to save it to this. And then the save function is going to go ahead and save it to the database itself, right? Now, one thing I forgot here is you actually want to respond with something so that the request knows it's completed. So we'll just say user created, right? So let's go ahead and test this out. Okay, now we got the username cannot read the property, right? So the reason for this is, now in order to parse this information, you need an additional middleware, right? So if you go to the Mongoose middleware, I'm sorry, the Express middleware, you'll see it right here. It's called BodyParser. And what this does is just going to parse the data into JSON, right? So let's go ahead and copy this. Okay, and paste it at there. We actually don't need these two right there. Okay. All right, so just extra attention. This is what I did there, okay? So now we can parse this data. Now we can parse the data that the user is giving us. All right, so let's go ahead and give it another try. And actually, we didn't install BodyParser module. We called it out here, but we didn't install it. So don't forget to do that, right? And just go to the main directory, and then npm install BodyParser, okay, and then save. Okay, and back to our server. Everything's running. So now let's give the request a try again. Okay, and there we go. User created. That's what we got back, and here's a request, post/users. Now we want to verify that this was actually entered into the database, okay? Now there's different ways to do this depending on how you're running your Mongo database. If you're running it on the command line, then you have to figure out how to check your database using the command line. I don't like to use a command line to check data in the database because it's just time consuming. I have RoboMongo installed, which is a Mongo database extension user face, if you will, that helps you look at your database easier, okay? Okay, so once you've figured out how you want to access your data, whether you want to use RoboMongo, I know it's available for Linux and Windows. There may be other methods out there. Just search Mongo database, get caught up on that first, then you'll know how to get your data, right? But once you do that, you want to go inside your database and make sure that the user was indeed created. And here we go, username, Vegeta, password, Goku, and email, right? And then the ID is automatically generated. That's just a Mongo database thing. Now, an immediate obvious problem that you're noticing here is the password is not encrypted, right? And you never want to do that, even for testing purposes. So the one thing that we want to do is we want to go back to our user model, and we're going to implement an encryption method, okay? And the one that I like to use is called Bcrypt node. It's just so easy to use. If you just search Bcrypt node.js on Google, you'll get this page. And all you have to do is just copy this down here, right? Actually, not the whole thing. We'll just need this, right? And then right at the end, just paste it there. Okay. So next, what we want to do is we want to use a Mongoose middleware, and what it's called is schema pre-save. If you go to the Mongoose middlewares, you'll see it right here. Basically what it does is, hey, before saving the schema, do this one thing, right? And so what we want to do is, before saving the schema, is encrypt the password. So we'll just paste that there. Okay, and then it says schema, go ahead and put user schema. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and implement this Bcrypt encryption here. Okay, and we'll say bcrypt.hash. Okay, and actually one other thing I forgot to do is you want to go ahead and create a variable and name it anything, and assign it this, right? So what that does is it's going to apply it to whatever user is running through this middleware, okay? And so inside here you're going to say password, right? You can't just put password, all right, because it has to recognize that it's this password, and you do that using user, right? Okay, and then of course I'm just following the example down here. Just hit comma null function error hash. Okay, and so now what we want to do, and it even tells you here in the example, store hash in your password database, right? And the way you do that, you just say user.password equals hash, right? And what it does is it takes the hash it generated and it assigns it here to the username password. Now, if you notice, it's trying to give you the option to throw an error. Don't necessarily do this, but you can configure that just in case. And what you can do is just say if error, then next. I think it's actually return next, and then pass the error. Okay. And so this actual next right here, you want to paste that underneath the password hash, so that after it's done hashing the password, it knows to exit this middleware. All right. So you can go ahead and delete that. Okay, go ahead and hit save, make sure nothing broke. Alright, there we go. Now, we haven't called Bcrypt yet, so I'm not going to try this because I know it's going to throw me that error, so let me just go ahead now and catch it, right? So var bcrypt acquire bcrypt node.js, right? And then of course it's going to throw you an error. We have to install it. So npm install bcrypt node.js. There we go. Save. Okay, and while that's going, what you want to do is go back into your database, right, and delete the user you've already created, right? Okay, once that's done, we're going to go ahead and try to create the user again. Okay, and then so here we go, username, password, and email. And then we got the returned user created. Now we want to verify that the password is indeed encrypted. And if you go to your database, you'll see right there, password encrypted. All right, very simple. Now that we have a way to encrypt the password and register the user with the username and email, what we want to do now is add configuration to our server, right? And this configuration basically is we want to add options, right? For example, right now, if I try to create this user again, right? Let's just say I hit send, right? There it goes, user created. Even if you hit send again, user created. Now it's not actually creating the user because our user model, what's it called? Unique doesn't allow you to create another one with that same username or email. But nevertheless, we're still getting that error back that says user created. And the reason for that is because we only provided one option here. All right, we want to provide multiple options. So the way we do that, okay, is inside of save, we want to go ahead and pass in a function that has an error in it, okay? And then if that error is there, then we want to, we'll say res.send error. Okay, so actually the way you want to do this, because I forgot you're not going to be able to do it this way, is you want to go ahead and say if error, send the error, or if there isn't, then send back that the user was created, right? So we'll just cut that and paste it there. Okay, So this is kind of what that looks like. If error, so here it obtains the information, right here, and then it tries to save it. And if there's an error, then you send that error back. If there isn't, then user created. Simple, right? Let's go ahead and try that out. Alright, and there you go. You're getting an error message here that's saying duplicate error collection tutorial, some bunch of stuff, right? Basically saying, hey, that username or email already exists, right? But we don't want to return all this hot mess to the user. Okay, so what we want to do is say maybe something like username or email already exists. Okay, so let's try that again. And there you go. This is a little better to look at than all that that we had. Okay, now in the grand scheme of things, this isn't going to matter because users are not going to access it using this client. They're going to be on a browser in a form. But for now, we want to do it this way just to kind of give you an idea of how it's going to work on the back end side of things, right? So we're almost there. We're almost good to go. Now we still have another problem, right? If you go back into the client, if you'll notice, let's say I delete one of these fields, right? Let's say email, and then I hit send. We're getting that same error again, right? The username or email already exists, right? But that's, we're not getting anything on the missing field, right? And even if we change this, right? Let's say we say Gohan, right? We're still getting that username or password already exists, right? Clearly that username or email does not exist, but that's the only configuration we have, so that's the only error. That's the only option we're giving it, right? So the way we want to counter this, right, there's a few ways to do this, but this is the simplest way, right? So what you want to do is take this whole operation, this whole saving operation, and you don't want to do it unless a criteria is met. And that criteria is that an email, a username, and password was provided, right? So we're going to say if criteria here, right, criteria, then else, and then we're going to paste it here. Okay, so let me go ahead and paste this, and I'll show you a little bit what the direction is that I'm going here, right? Okay, so up here, this first if, is going to be if the stuff is not provided. If you didn't provide email, username, or password, then do this. Else, if you did provide it, then go ahead and process the user, save them, etc. Okay. So now let's build the criteria, right? Well, first we know what we're going to do if the criteria is not met, right? It's going to be res.send, and we're going to say no, or let's say ensure username, email, and password were provided. Okay, we know that's what we want to send back. Okay, let's go ahead and enter the criteria, right? So this will be a little bit lengthy, but this is the only way that I know how to do it. That's actually pretty simple. So we're going to say if the request.body.username is null, or I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, or is blank, right? So what this is saying is either it's undefined, meaning it doesn't even exist, or it was submitted but empty, right? And so what that does is counter, like say for example user submitted but it's like that, okay, then that's considered blank but still exists, right? Right now the email is null because it doesn't even exist at all, but the username actually does exist but it's empty. So that's why I'm providing those two options. Is the first one is if it doesn't even exist at all, or if it does exist and it's blank, because we want to prevent both of those things, right? And so we want to go ahead and do that basically for every single field, right? So request.body.password equals null, or request.body.password equals empty, or request.body.email is null, or request.body.email is empty. Okay, so there we go. So now let's try and see what we get. Okay, it says email, ensure user email and password were provided. So there we go. We have that verification now. So now it's not even going to get to the saving part, checking if username and email exist, unless all this criteria is met, which is basically that you provide a username, password, and email, right? Simple. Okay, so that's it for our user model. Okay, pretty simple. We're not going to get a this is basically our register module, our register route. And later on, we're going to be creating one to like log in and log out and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, this is very basic, and this is the direction that I want to lead you in. At next, what we're going to do is start building on our front end. All right, we're going to build our index. We're going to go ahead and import all the Angular and the Bootstrap stuff. All right, so